everybody. This week you will finish up stage one of desired results. Before we get started with that, I just want to give you a little background about the application that I'm using. It's called Jing, Jing, and it is a free capturing software that allows you to narrate whatever it is that you have on your screen. So it's a great tool for your toolbox. Feel free to use it for your technology lesson. So at this point in the design process, you should have your topic, your goal, and your AASL standards. If you remember, my sample lesson is the topic has to do with the Dust Bowl of the Great Depression, and the goal is for students to use primary documents to gain an understanding of the conditions that led to the Dust Bowl as well as its effects on the inhabitants, including the people, the animals, the insects of the Great Plains. During this week, the four final elements of this stage are understandings, essential questions, what students will know, and what students will be able to do. And it can get a little confusing, it's a little ambiguous as to the difference between what students will understand versus what they will know versus what they will do. Hence why I felt the need to put this little mini lesson together to help clarify that. So under this design, what understandings are really the big ideas, the very general transferable ideas that are made up of distinct pieces of knowledge. In this particular case, using the example is probably the best way to illustrate what that means is I wanted students to have a thorough understanding of how natural disasters, when coupled with human activity, can affect an environmental area and also have very devastating effects on a particular region. So in this particular case, I'm talking about the Dust Bowl during the Depression era. It was a result of a combination of agricultural practices as well as weather and environmental factors. But the large understanding is that this has happened in many situations. An example of a transferable concept is when students later on perhaps learn about Katrina. That also was a combination of a natural disaster being a hurricane, human activity having to do with the infrastructure and the dams within the area, and that had terrible consequences for a particular region, New Orleans and the South. But that is the big mental construct that is actually transferable to many scenarios. So another understanding that I had for my lesson is that primary sources or an unfiltered window. It can really give us a first-hand account of what is happening in a particular era, in a particular region. For this lesson, I'm talking about primary documents regarding the Dust Bowl, but primary documents are available for many past eras and can be used to give us a first-hand account as to what it was like to live in that particular era in a particular geographical region. So these are the three major understandings, big ideas that I want students to take away from the lesson and use perhaps in other contexts. Part two of this, we'll talk a little bit more about how understandings are different than knowledge or what students will know, as well as what students will be able to do. And a big piece of this design process are essential questions. So you can reference that in part two of this lesson.